Right, good afternoon, grade 8s. Okay, carrying on with contraception. I hope that you understood the previous lesson. So let's go. So remember that up until now, I have dealt with barrier methods of contraception, and that is the male and the female condom, the two that you have to learn about. There are other barrier methods. You don't have to know them. Then the second category that I started on was hormonal methods. Now, we finished with the pill and the mini pill, the oral combined pill and the mini pill. We're now getting onto something that's significantly different. It is called an intrauterine device. And just be really, really careful. Intra means inside something. Inter means between. So if you play hockey between, oh no, I can't remember the names of the houses at bowling. The yellow house and the red house. That would be inter, I-N-T-E-R, house hockey. If, however, the people within the red house challenged other people within the red house, like the grade 12s divided into two red house groups and played hockey against each other, that would be intra-house hockey. And so an intrauterine device is something that is placed in the uterus, and it is abbreviated as an IUD. Now, one thing you have to know about abbreviations in life sciences is, well, two things you need to know. You cannot make up your own abbreviations. You may only use accepted scientific abbreviations. You can't make up your own. And then the second thing is that if you're going to use an abbreviation in a test or exam, the first time you write out that particular thing, you have to write out the whole word. So you would write intrauterine device in brackets IUD, and after that you're allowed to use IUD for that test or exam. It doesn't mean for the rest of your life you're allowed to write IUD. And IUDs are really interesting things because the researchers are not 100% sure how they work. So there are many different shapes and sizes of IUD, and you can see some of them down here, okay, in this particular picture. In general, an IUD is a small T-shaped device, either made from material containing progesterone hormone or made of plastic and copper. So it can be material containing progesterone, or it is plastic and copper. Okay. So an intrauterine device is fitted inside the woman's uterus. Now this looks absolutely huge, but it's not. It's tiny. You saw here how tiny it is. And please, while we're on this, notice the two little strings here, the two nylon strings. We'll talk about those just now. And it has to be inserted by a trained healthcare provider. So generally speaking, it is inserted by a doctor. Okay. And it sits like this in the uterus. The T part here, the arm of the T down there, and here are those two little nylon threads. And the nylon threads pass through the cervix into the top of the vagina. Okay, so the IUD is a long-acting, in other words, it can stay there depending on the kind of IUD until it is removed. And it works, in general, it works until it is removed. So some of the IUDs can stay in position for 10 years and not have to be removed and replaced. And they would be effective for that period of time. Some of the newer hormonal ones have to be replaced more often. So it is a long-acting and reversible method of contraception. It can stay in place, and it functions for between 3 to 10 years, depending on the type. So it stays in the woman's uterus for that entire period of time, preventing pregnancy for that period of time. Okay, so there's certain things that you need to know about the IUD. So it is placed in the uterus. It can't be felt during sexual intercourse. Oh, look at the spelling error, another spelling error. That's 3 in this whole PowerPoint. One of the things that it does is it thickens cervical, make sure you know how to spell that, I don't, mucus, to prevent sperm from entering the uterus and reaching an egg cell. So remember that when a male ejaculates, the semen will be released into the vagina. If the cervical mucus is thick, then the sperm can't penetrate the cervix to go up into a fallopian tube to fuse with an egg cell. The second way in which they act is they can prevent sperm from reaching or fertilizing an egg cell. So in the case of the ones that are made of copper, besides thickening the cervical mucus, sperm reacts badly to copper, and so it actually kills the sperm. And then the third way in which IUDs work, so the first one is thicken the cervical mucus. The second one is prevents sperm from reaching or fertilizing an egg cell. And the third way is it thins the endometrium. And therefore, if by any chance fertilization occurs, that little embryo can't implant in the endometrium because the endometrium is too thin. Okay, so those are the 3 ways in which an IUD is thought to prevent pregnancy. And then here you can see the 2 little thin threads that pass from the uterus through into the vagina. And the purpose of those threads is so the female can check every now and again that the IUD is still positioned correctly and in the uterus. It is possible for the IUD to fall out. Okay, it's not likely, but it's possible. And so by feeling those 2 thin threads, a female can tell whether the IUD is still there. Okay. So then I said to you that some IUDs contain hormones that are gradually released to prevent pregnancy by artificially changing the hormone levels in the body. So a bit like a contraceptive pill, but it doesn't have to be taken every day. It can be put in position and it just works and works and works and works for a long time. It can also be an effective emergency contraceptive if fitted by a healthcare professional within 5 days of having unprotected sex. So I'm sure that you know about what is called the morning after pill. So if a female does have unprotected sex and is worried about falling pregnant, then the morning after pill is the one that is normally used, but an IUD can work in the same kind of way. Okay, so the hormonal intrauterine device is a small T-shaped plastic device that slowly releases a hormone, progesterone, into the uterus. So IUDs negatively affect the way in which sperm move and survive in the uterus. So they prevent sperm from reaching and fertilizing an egg cell or an ovum. They can also change the endometrium, I said to you, they thin it, and stop an embryo from implanting. And then especially the hormonal IUD can make the mucus at the opening to the uterus, which you know is called the cervix, preventing sperm from passing through. It can also affect ovulation by changing the hormones that cause an ovum to be released every month. So what are the advantages of an IUD? No mood breaking, because it doesn't have to interrupt foreplay to be used. There's no trying to remember to take a daily pill. And it's effective for up to 10 years before it needs to be replaced. There are some disadvantages. So it's possible to have menstrual disturbances with irregular bleeding and spotting, which just means that instead of having the entire menstrual period, that a female might spot blood between periods. And there's no protection against sexually transmitted infections. And this is one of the things that you need to be able to use in an argument as to whether a couple should use a particular kind of contraceptive method. Okay. Then as work, I want you to complete the activity on pages 86 and 87 of the textbook by next lesson. And next lesson, you can go through the answers on that. Okay, all right. Have a good weekend if this lesson does fall on Friday, but I do think that it